It was kind of a busy week here at Mercedessource this past week. It's Saturday, and I'm kind of tying up some loose ends. But you know, I had to do 3 jobs that I don't really like. I have to admit it. They're not my favorite. Okay, one of them is change the rear end fluid in old Fritz here. Now, anybody want to guess why I don't like changing rear end fluid? Yeah, because it's real messy. It's just real messy. You know, you end up overfilling the thing and it's dripping all over the place and it's gooey and stinky. The other one is changing flexible brake hoses on rusty cars. Now note I say rusty cars because changing brake hoses generally isn't a big deal, but when you get a European model like this or some car that's been subject to road salt, Midwest, East Coast, so on, you try to change these flexible brake hoses, you're going to go nuts. And that's what happened to me. They would not come loose. And then thirdly, I had to replace the emergency brake shoes because one side was totally missing. There was no material on the shoe. You know, and it was funny. I was telling Jerson, I says, "Hey, Jerson, I don't want to do this job. I don't like changing emergency brake shoes, you know, messing with all those springs, you know, trying to get them off, trying to get everything lined up." I said, let's just put the rotor back on. I won't use the emergency brake. And I thought about it for a while. I thought, no, I got other things I need to do other than hassle an emergency brake. But I decided to go ahead and do it. And you know what's interesting? All 3 of these jobs this past week, I developed 3 new tools because I wanted to lower the frustration level. I wanted to make the job more pleasant. I can't believe it. Now I enjoy changing rear end fluid. I'll give you a little sneak peek here. And the emergency brake hose, it was tough. I couldn't get all 4 of them, and we came up with a new power tool to loosen up rusty fittings. Whoa, this is like revolutionary. You know, I think back the last 20 years, all the rusty nuts, bolts, fittings I had to deal with, and now, whoa, I got a way to get these off without damaging stuff. You know, the problem with flexible brake hoses, you end up rounding off that fitting on the hard line, and then you got a big wrench there. It's just huge. And then finally, I started messing around with these emergency brake shoes on this one, and I said, you know, I need to come up with a tool that makes it easier to get those springs on and off. Any of you out there change these emergency brake shoes? I can remember prying, pulling, getting vice grips, trying to pull that spring out. And even some of the tools they sell, you know, they don't really work that well. So we spent an entire day trial and error, trying all kinds of different things. And at the end of the day, we came up with one tool that will do all 3 jobs. It will remove and install the little side springs. It will remove and install that tough lower spring. And when you're all done, the tool will adjust the emergency brake. How's that? So I'm pretty happy this week. 3 new tools, 3 new kits. And then I've got another kit I come up with on how to prep the wheel and the hub so you install it properly without getting any vibration. You know, I'm out here Saturday because I got to write all these instructions, you know. It's not real easy when you do some of these kits because you got to write all this stuff. I'm the one that writes it. I sit down and write, okay, this is included, this does this doesn't that. So I got to write all this stuff. I got to take pictures of everything. So that's what I do on Saturdays. That's what I'm going to be doing when I turn the camera off. So I hope all of you have a good weekend because this was really a good week for me. Okay, I want to talk about that special tool I was working on last week. It has to do with getting these radiator hoses off. If any of you have worked on cars for any length of time, you've run into that situation where you unloosen up this clamp here and you literally cannot get the hose off. It's stuck. Now, there is a pick tool that you can get in underneath and kind of pry it off, but here you can't even get the pick tool on the back side. And of course, it's always where these hoses clamp onto aluminum nipples because you get that corrosion that then bonds the hose. So we've developed a number of clamping tools. So just let's just make a bigger one. See, you get a bigger one like this, you can get on these radiator hoses and twist them because that's the key. You've got to get on them and clamp them down and twist them to break them loose. You get down in a place like this, you got to have one that can get into a tight location like that. So you can see here that even with this tool, I can work this down on there once I get that clamp off, and I can work this back and forth to get that hose off. Now, the ones that have been commercially available on the market look like this. Now, there's two drawbacks to this type of radiator hose removal tool. Number one, it's got sharp teeth, and if you get in here and start digging away on this, you're going to ruin the hose. So this is fine if you're going to throw the hose away. But what about here? You can't even get that in there. So in some tight places, a tool does not work like this one here for removing old stuck radiator hoses. So enter our new tool. We're pretty proud of this. We're going to make one with a longer handle on it and play around with it. I think the shorter handle is going to be better because you're going to be able to get into tighter locations like down here on that bottom radiator hose as well. So that's it, folks. You've seen the world's first truly effective radiator hose removal tool. Now, I want to tell you a little story in closing today as you look at this tool, because you're thinking, well, Kent, where did you get this obsession to build these better mousetraps? I think it happened when I was flying airplanes in New Guinea. One of my goals was to never have an accident. Flew like 15 landings a day in some of the most hostile environment you can imagine. Some of the strips were, 15% upgrade, narrow, rainy. There was storms everywhere. It was some of the worst weather I've ever seen. And I didn't want to have an accident. So I read accident reports all the time. And I ended up either modifying my behavior or modifying the airplane. And in this particular case, I had read about 2 accidents where the tail wheel swivel in the Cessna 185 got stuck and the guy couldn't control the airplane. Because that tail wheel swivels. It doesn't steer. You hit the brakes. Differential braking on the airplane will make that tail wheel swivel and you can turn. But the tail wheel would get locked up because of all the dirt getting into the phenolic washers. So look what I did. I developed a fender. That's right. A little fender that I put just above the tail wheel to protect those phenolic washers to keep them from getting dirt and grit in them. And I never had any problems with steering my Cessna 185. Of course, this is a B-roll where I'm using this tool here